Everybody, what's happening? Just give me a moment. I'm trying to adjust something here. Un momentito, por favor. Let's see if we can get this YouTube right with the lights here. Just give me 1 minute. I hope everybody's doing well. It's Friday night, y'all. And something was impressed upon my heart a few days ago. And I want to talk about it now. I don't know how to get you at the ceiling light, but hey, I was trying. How's everybody doing? So it's Friday night. I don't know how long I'll be on here, but I just want to talk about something because I believe a lot of us are experiencing some type of transitioning. And the title of this, as you see on the video, is talking about, are you dealing with the transition or the death of a parent? And if you're on my YouTube channel, um, thank you for showing up. I go ahead and hit like, subscribe, and share. You may see it after the fact. Excuse me. I'm here cooking my oxtails. You may see it after the fact. But if you're on my Facebook page, go ahead and run to my YouTube channel. It is Battles and Journeys. I think it's very important to listen. It's a touchy subject. For some, it's going to be emotional. I think it's very important that we have a community. I want to reach the community of people that have lost a parent, whether it's a mother or father, whoever raised you, that was your parent or your grandmother. Um, Give me a few moments. I'm pulling this together. I want to hook up to my. Just one moment here. You will probably hear some noise in the background. See if I can hook up to my headset here. See if I can do both of these to my headset. Facebook and YouTube. Go ahead and run to my YouTube channel, Battles and Journeys. Amazing. I think I got both connected. Amazing. All right. So I think it's very important to talk about this. This could be very sensitive. It could be a very touchy subject. And let's just make sure I am connected well. It keeps saying that I am slow. The connection is slow, but it's not. All right. So I think it's a very important subject to talk about. It can be very emotional. I know at times for me it is emotional. About almost 8 years ago, January the 28th, would be of 2025 would be 8 years that Mama transitioned. And so I have seen over the past few months of people's parents transitioning. It's a very difficult situation. It can be quite emotional. Now, not for everybody. We all grieve differently. We all grieve in different ways, and we all deal with our grief differently. So I want to talk about it. It's a little sticky subject. If you're on my Facebook page and you want to join in into the conversation, because maybe you want to talk about how you get through your grief and how do you deal with the transition of a parent or a loved one, someone maybe who have raised you. Particularly, I'm talking about parents, and it doesn't have to be your biological parents, but somebody who raised you, because death affects us in so many different ways, and we're individuals, and so we deal with that. And maybe you're having a parent that you're watching transition before your eyes, and you see that they are coming close, coming near to their end. And so there's certain things. eh, Let me just say this: there's nothing you could do to prepare for it. The doctors can talk to you, the hospice can talk to you. You can hear it from those of us who have experienced it. Uh, but there's absolutely nothing you can do to prepare yourself fully. You could do some things to try to shift your mindset and how you're going to handle it, but you really don't know how you're going to handle it, and you don't know how it's going to affect you until that time comes, which is why it's very important that if you've not lost a parent or a mother or father or someone who raised you and you saw there was a parental figure to you, that you don't tell someone who lost their parents that you know how it feels. I think that's one of the most, that's a grave mistake to make and say, I know how it feels. I've had people ask me, or I've had people to say to me, I know how you feel. And the first question I ask is, did you lose your parent? Is your mother, grandfather, or grandmother still alive? Maybe that person raised you, your father. And they'll say no. I said, well, there's no way in the world you can understand how that feels. And it's challenging. I may get emotional. I can't control how I'm going to feel on this platform or whatever platform you're looking at. Go to My Battles and Journeys on YouTube and hit like and subscribe and hit that call bell, please. I think it's something important because we're coming to the close of the year, and some people have lost their parent in around this time of the year. Around this time of the year, we were watching our mother um, transitioning. Like it's October, we're going into November, um, December, and then January. Uh, my mom, she transitioned. And so it's important to know that death is a part of life. And that sounds soothing to you and to us. It was to me until it happened to me. Um, we can come up with all types of scriptures. Those that are absent in the body is present with the Lord. Listen, all of that sounds great until it happens. So you can try to prepare your psyche, your mind for the transitioning. And it doesn't work because you've not yet had that experience. And once you've had that experience, once that experience hit you, then you'll start feeling what it feels like. It takes a little time though, because initially you're in shock that this has happened, or you feel numb. I know for me, it felt like my world stopped, like the world just stopped, time stopped. And so, yes, death is a part of life. It's a natural part of life. We come and we go, but it's very difficult to deal with. Now, let me put this disclaimer out there because some people have lost their parents and it didn't affect them at all. And there are several reasons why it may not affect them, or they don't go through any emotional discourse or emotional roller coaster ride. Just because that's their parent doesn't mean they had a connection with their parent. Just because you are a son, you are a daughter, that's your mother, that's your father. Everybody don't have the same connection. Even when I talk to some of you and you come back and you listen to this audio or this video, you'll understand. You may not be able to relate because maybe you had a turbulent relationship with a parent. Maybe it was traumatizing for you and a parent, whatever that is. But I don't take it for granted that everyone has the same experience or the connection with their parents that is now gone or is now transitioning. So understand, just because someone loses a parent
Doesn't mean everybody is affected the same way because everybody's connected a different way. And the vicissitudes of life have caused them to have a disconnect, or they become numb to the fact that their parent has transitioned. Some people are happy because they experienced some type of trauma. And the more they saw them, and it may have been some type of abusive relationship. So I don't assume because you lost your mother or you lost your father that you're in a terrible state of being emotionally, and you're dealing with their transition in such an emotional way. Uh, there's so many ways that we can go with this, but this has been on me for the past few days, actually for the past couple of weeks, but strongly over the past few days, is to talk to people that has experienced the loss of a parent, such as I have or my family have, right? And talk about the connection perhaps that you had with them. Now, I don't have the testimony that I didn't have a good relationship with my mother. My mother's gone. Uh, my father, I can't really. That's not really what I want to talk about because I didn't have that connection with my father, sort of present but absent. And you know how that is in our black families: present. They are sometimes present, but they're absent. Taking it. And so I don't take it for granted. I don't automatically assume that someone is hurting or in pain because they lost or their parent transition. I don't like to use the word loss, but I understand it's a loss to us on this side. But everybody didn't have that connection with their parents. Some hated their parents, and maybe some of the parents hated their children. You can't relate to this. I'm really reaching out to those, and we'll talk about that maybe some other time, because you have to somehow not allow hate to fill your heart because of some disproportionate something that happened in your family. It's eight of us. My mother was a very strong woman. That's all I ever seen very present in our home. And this is my journey, but I want you to join in on this journey. And some of you may have the same experience, or you may have the opposite experience. I remember seeing my mother go to work. I was a little boy, and I always wanted to take her off her job. And so, as a little kid, I wasn't even a teenager. I was probably 8 years old. Eventually, years later, probably a few years before mom passed, she told me, she said, "You didn't think I saw you, but I saw you standing up looking out the window when I got on the truck to go to the farm, to the fields," because she did field work. I didn't know she saw me, but years later, she told me, she said, "I would see you peeping out the window." I said, "Mom, I was praying that God would protect you." I was a little kid. And so we grew up. My mother sent us to church. So I sort of knew the responsibility of prayer. And I remember looking at my mother get on the back of that truck saying, "God, I really want to be able to take my mother off her job. And I don't want to working so hard." But she raised 8 children alone. And so something about, for me, I'm talking about me, something about a mother. Uh, well, all mothers are connected to their children in some way, form, or fashion. Got to think about it. If she carried you for however many months, whether you were a premature child or she carried you the full term, there was always this connection that she had with a child and you had with the mother. This is why I honestly don't understand when a child is disconnected from their mother. Um, but I sort of do, because if you're carrying that child, while you're carrying that child, I believe it's important with how you feel. If you are already regretting or rejecting the child before it's born, I do believe that child feels that rejection while he's in the womb or she's in the womb. I believe that. I believe whatever you're carrying, you can feel, the child can feel it. If you're already rejecting the child because maybe perhaps the mother had a bad experience with the baby father, and they start regretting the child, that child feels all of that. So that part I understand. I believe that when a child is born, they already feel that disconnect. But also, I believe if y'all can hear me, let me know because I'm on this headset on both my laptop and my phone. But I also believe a mother knows her child because she has carried in this and has connected with that child in the matrix, in the womb. And so when you're born, I just believe your mother knows you. We could talk about the seed of the father, but mostly we see single parent homes in our black families where the mothers are always raising the children. They're left with the child or the children. You've heard the term father's maybe, but mama's baby. It's gonna always be that child because she's carrying the child, so she's always the parent. And it may not necessarily be so with the father because it could be for whatever, you understand the picture. I'm painting the picture pretty well, I think, and clear. So I believe when you're born, your mother already know who you are because she's been feeding you. Some have been talking to you while you was in the womb, and she's already connected. And so I feel a little emotion rising up somewhere, but I'll deal with it as it shows up. And I think it's important that we let our emotions take its course and not suppress it because when you suppress it, it still has to come out. Or it could be that all those emotions can get trapped in your body and it can really make you sick and I believe cause illnesses because it's trapped emotions that you've not let out. It's important and nobody can tell you how long or how to grieve or how long it takes to grieve or you should be over that by now. No one gets that opportunity to tell you nor me that we should be over it by now. And so when that child is born and that mother's so happy most of the time, and my mother raised us. And I think one of the biggest challenges of her, um, one of the biggest, oh, I don't know how far I'm gonna get with this, but one of the biggest challenges of her transitioning is I've had her for all of these years, and this is where grief comes, and this is where we start feeling empty because one, we was always connected to that mother. Two, whatever your age was when she transitioned or your father transitioned, um, you've had them for that long. And now for the first time in the history of your life, you have to live without them. And that takes a bit of adjustment. It takes quite a bit of adjustment. It's been almost 8 years for me, and I am still adjusting yet, still adjusting. So I think the biggest challenge is we've always had them. We've always been connected to that mother. Whew. And for the first time, our lives have shifted because they're no longer here. We've always known them. From day one, we've always had them. And now it's day one, we have to live without them. And we don't know quite how to maneuver in life. We don't quite know how to maneuver life because it's very difficult and challenging because we've always had them. And it's a piece of us, those of us that had connection and was close to our parents, there's a piece of us that leaves. And so it's very important to look at this critically and understand that death is a part of life, one. Two, how you move through life when that happens, I believe is very, very, very important to talk to a grief counselor. I believe you should get a counselor or have counselors, multiple counselors. And so we struggle with making that adjustment because we've always had them. And now for the first time, whether you're 50, 60, 40, 30, 20, hey Tanya, hey Miss Shirley, now this is the first time in history that you have to live without them. So a piece of you leaves. It's sort of like leave a hole in your heart. My life has not been the same since. I know if you had again, I put this disclaimer out there earlier. Everybody's not connected to a parent, and everybody wasn't close to their parent or parents. So I don't take it for granted, and I do not make assumptions just because you experience a death of a parent that you're hurting or that you are in pain or that you're emotionally distraught, because everybody didn't have that connection. I don't have that testimony. I was very, very, very close to my mother, extremely close. Some of you saw the dialogue between us, and some of you had a chance to see um, some of the things that I chose to put on Facebook and live to show the the connection, right? Um, so it's important. Tanya, I know that you was close to your mother, Miss Shirley. I know you was close to yours. And so how do we deal with the loss? And I hate to say loss, but they're lost to us because we no longer have them in this physical terra firma, in this physical world. And so for the first time, and it's been 8 years in January the 28th, 2025, it still feels like it happened today, not yesterday. I used to say, oh, it feels like it was yesterday. No, it still feels like it's today. I still remember the conversations. And so how did I deal with the transitioning? It was difficult. I'm gonna tell you, watching a mother that raised 8 children by herself alone. I don't know who's doing that in this day. And she did it doing farm work and whatever season it was. If it was potatoes, she was in the potatoes. If it was flowers, she was in the flowers. If it was okra, she was cutting okra. If it was peas, whatever it was, my mother was there and she worked year round. There was no vacationing for her. She had 8 children to take care of. And I remember asking her some years before she passed, we had conversations. I said, you work so hard. What is it that you want to do now? Like, what is it that you enjoy? And I remember her telling me, I was sitting on the porch. She was on the porch. She said, I don't know what I like, because she said, Mama had us in the field working since we were 3. So all our mother knew was work. So she didn't even know what it was to enjoy life. She didn't know what she wanted in life or what she enjoyed. She was always made to work. And then she had 8 children and she worked, most of her life. And so I remember her saying, I work that way because these were her words, long in those days, if you couldn't take care of your children, the state would take them from you. And she said, I did not want you all in all these different homes. She said, I worked hard because I always wanted y'all together. Family, I need you to hear this. I always wanted you all together. And that's why she worked the way she worked, because she didn't want anybody to take her children and have us just thrown out everywhere to these different homes. And so that's why it was sometimes disheartening to me to see. I don't want to become that emotional, but it was sort of disheartening to me to see that one person took care of 8 people. And then when it came time, 8 people couldn't take care of one person. So parents, it's not guaranteed just because you have children that they're going to take care of you. I don't care how good you've been to them. And hey, Pansy, hey, David, it's not guaranteed. And I know she thought because she had all these boys, my mother had 7 boys and 1 girl. I know she had to think, well, I remember my brother bringing this up to me one time. My brother Leonard, we had this conversation years ago. He said, boy, I know mama thought, all these boys that everybody was going to take care of it. And unfortunately, that didn't happen, but the right people did the right thing and we just made it work. Shame on them. Yeah. But a parent transitioning, whether it was a foster parent or your grandmother who raised you, it is never easy when you are connected to them. Now, if you're already disconnected and you hate them, then you're probably happy that they left. Or if you felt some kind of way, I don't know what that feels like. That is not my testimony by no means. And so when they make this transition, it changes your world. I can't even see things the same. Colors look different to me. I see through a different set of lens. I don't see people the same. I So it was challenging to see her transition because one person raised 8 people and we couldn't get 8 people on board to support her. And that's not my grief because I think everybody has to deal with their own their own stuff because sometimes people don't really know that they're that close to death. And then when it happens, they be like, man, I should have did this, that, and the other. I must say, I do not have any regrets. I don't have anything else. I just don't know of anything else that I know I should have did. I did everything I possibly could do. But and hopefully you did the same thing before your parents or parent died, passed away. And so that you won't have to live in guilt or have to live in some type of shame or you have to talk up as if you did such and such for them. You know you're lying. The devil know you're lying. Everybody around you know you're lying. And so it's something to make your conscience feel better. But my conscience is clear. Hopefully your conscience is clear because we don't know how much time we have together. I can get off of this live, God forbid, and take my last breath. But I can assure you, that funeral is going to be amazing. I've already have people set up in place. I came into this world with a bang, and I'm going to leave out with a bang. Uh, and I have no intentions of going anywhere, but life happens. And these different, div- div- uh, the vicissitudes in life, it challenges us. And so this is why it's so important that when they are alive, when parents are alive, it's so important to put aside your selfishness. Life gets busy and you get busy with your own family, but we should never forget our parents that supported us and took care of us. Granted, again, every parent didn't step in and do that. I don't have that testimony. So we should, while they are alive, make room for them because I believe when they feel like that they are not needed and they feel like everybody has abandoned them, I believe they start desiring to leave because they're like, well, why else am I here? And you would think your children would be there for you. And hopefully you are there for them. And so watching her transition uh, uh, was quite challenging. But there was a couple of things going on watching my mother transition. Because there were times I felt like I was grieving because I'm seeing her dying, and I also had to be her protector from some of the people she birthed. So watching her die, and then on the other end protecting her, it's almost like I had to be a hybrid, a protector and a fighter, right? Watching her pass. Now everybody wasn't all. I, I don't want to get into the details of it, but I'm just saying, watching this happen before my eyes was very difficult because to see a woman so strong now all of a sudden can't do for herself because of bone cancer. And if you know anybody with bone cancer, uh, then you know how that is. Yes, DeAndre, I talked about that as well in the front of the deal. because there's some people don't have that connection with their parents for whatever reason, whether it was abuse or it was some type of quarreling for whatever. So everybody don't have that kind of connection that I'm talking about tonight. I will talk about those parents and children that didn't have a connection because of abuse or because somebody put their husband or boyfriend ahead of their child. And when the child said, "That one touched me," and you don't, but the parent didn't believe the child, she took the word of, or he took the word of the adult and not the child. So that's a whole different. This is why I need to talk about this, because there's a whole lot to talk about, and it has so many different dynamics. But tonight I want to talk about this dynamic about how do you deal with the passing of a parent, and how do you get through it, and what do you do, and what are you doing to help get through this process. I believe personally that we'll always go through this until we get to the end of our life. I must say this. I talked to this lady, she was 90 some years old, I believe. She was in rehab with my mother. Actually, I think she was in the nursing home part, and my mother was in the rehab part in Gainesville, Florida. So, but they all came to the table to eat. And I remember sitting there in rehab with we at the table. I hated to see her there because um, to see her in a facility, I mean, it was just heartbreaking. And knowing that her thigh bone broke, which is the longest and strongest bone in the body, which is a sign that the cancer was wreaking havoc. And so I would, so granted, let's back up. I lived in Atlanta. My mother was in Florida. So I was there through each situation. I would either fly in or drive in. And so I remember her being in this facility that I hated. I, I can't even tell you the details of it because I turned that place completely out. And I know my foot is still up in there. Yeah. So because I had to explain to them, my mother's not a number. I know to you it's a number, but she's not a number to me. She's my mother, and I can't tell you how the time that I called the rehab place, and I wanted to speak to her nurse because I needed details. I wanted to know, when did she have her last bowel movement? When was the last time she ate? I knew she had went to the hospital from the rehab. Because all of a sudden she got this cough, and I needed to know if she took the medication. And the nurse was oblivious to it, did not know any of that. And I asked her, I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "Do you know my mother has bone cancer?" She didn't know. So, of course, I hit the roof. Oof, I tore the roof off. I was like, how can you properly care for her when you don't know her condition? If you turn her wrong too hard, you'll break her bones. And so when she told me I was asking too many questions, she said, "Mr. Battle, you're asking too many questions." I, I'm not going to disclose to you what I said. But the very next day they saw me. Just just leave it at that. The very next day they saw me, and I got my mother out of that facility. However, though, the transitioning was hard because I was just multiple things going on. And I won't get into details here. And so it's a part of my journey though. But to see her so strong at one point now, because of bone cancer, she can't change her clothes. She can't get out the bed. She can't wash. Someone has to do that for her. And I knew that meant trouble because she was very independent. And so I knew that meant that she wasn't going to be here. But let me tell you, she asked me a question. It was me and Stephanie, my niece that looks like her. We was in her room, and she asked me, she said, "I want you to tell me something. When am I going to walk around in my room like y'all are walking around in my room?" And I just looked at her. I said, "Well, Mom, I got the therapist coming in." I couldn't tell her because I know if I said it, she would believe. She just believed what I said, right? She trusted me. And that's what she told me. She said, "I trust you with my life." And so that was her trust. And so, anyways, I couldn't give her an answer, but I knew when she looked at me and I could give her a solid answer, I knew she had made up her mind then that she was going to transition. She had already, she was like, "You can't tell me when I'm going to walk around in my room," because she was at this point bedridden. The cancer was spreading, had lesions all over her bones, her skull. They showed me the x ray, all the lesions that was throughout her body. She was not showing really signs of pain. I think the only pain that we saw that it was excruciating pain is when they put their rod in her leg to keep her bones together. But bone cancer does that to you. You could be walking and it breaks, and that's what happened to her. She was walking, and then the thigh bone broke and she fell. And so, be that it may, my mother, we would have these different conversations. But anyways, I don't want to get too far into that because it's a lot. Uh, so what I think counseling is very important, and don't think counseling is for somebody that's mentally ill. Now, it is a part of your mental health. It's very, very, very important to take care of your mental health. Seek a counselor. Prayer is great. I'm telling you, I believe in it. Prayer is great, but prayer joined with counseling is even greater. When you lose someone that you're so close to. Now, let me say this again. I put this disclaimer right there earlier. I don't assume that just because a person lost their parent, that they're sad, because everybody didn't have a good connection with their parent. They just didn't. I don't have that testimony. I can't tell you what it feels like for a mother to be against me, a mother to be against her. I can't tell you that. I can't. Now we probably felt abused by the time she finished whipping us because she was raising seven boys and a girl. So and she was the provider, and so she had to be hard on her boys. Most of us, or most of them. By the time I came along, I'm the baby of eight. You know, by the time I came along, she was tired. I think my mother had me at 36, 37 years old. So I'm the youngest, And so, and I'm sure some of the other ones, they have heard them mention that, oh, she didn't do you like she did us. I think she had seven opportunities. Whatever mistake she made, by the time she got to me, she was walking in perfection. And so, I mean, I'm the eighth, I'm the baby. And so there, I think from listening to some of my siblings, they had this, like they had a tough time dealing with how I was disciplined versus how they were disciplined. My mother was young. When they act like ET's children, she treated them and sent them home. And, my mother didn't play. She did discipline us, whether it was an extension cord. uh, yes, yes, niece. Yes, yes. So the thing about counselors, they help you connect the dots. It's very true. Um, and they hear you out. And so you need a listening ear. Don't go to your pastor. Don't do that. Go to somebody that doesn't know you. Oh, I'm gonna go to my pastor for counseling. Let me tell you something. They need counseling. A lot of the stuff that you see them doing is because they skip counseling. They stop. They're grieving. They have mental illnesses. They're depressed about their own life, and so go to a professional who has a license that it becomes illegal for them to discuss your business. If you talk to your pastor, you're gonna hit over the pulpit sometimes, and so I don't advise that. Don't go to a license. Oh, and then I heard people say, "Oh, God is my counselor. We don't need no counselor. The saints don't go to counseling. We don't." That's one of the biggest lies that could have ever been told. Because if you read your Bible and you say you do, and God is your counselor, and He's a mighty counselor, it also said that you find safety in the multitude of counseling. See how you done quoted scripture and not scriptures? You have stripped the scripture. All this, I hate to hear people say that. I cringe, and I'm very challenging. I cringe when I hear people say, "You, God is my counselor. God is the only counselor. He is a counselor." but they're safe in a multitude of counseling. So go to someone who's licensed, not somebody that's going to throw out a bunch of scriptures to you, because you try to use scriptures um, before they pass. I'm like, yeah, or as soon as they pass, to be present, to be absent in the body, to be present with the Lord. But that doesn't change how I feel. I've had this person for 40 some years, and all of a sudden they're gone. Don't throw me no scriptures. Use it to meditate on to help balance you out, but don't depend solely on that. Prayer is great. I believe in it. Trust me. I believe in it. I can pray right now and get you right to the throne. But you have to go to counseling. Go to a professional. Talk to somebody. Tell them how you feel. Because most people, a lot of people, black people, I've been black all my life, so I know us. We're not expressive people. And we'll pretend that we're okay. Because we were taught to pretend. How you doing? God is good. I'm great. You know, no, I'm sad. I'm emotional. I miss my mom. I don't feel good. Be honest about where you are. I believe we can be helped when we're honest about where we are. Our needs can be met when we are totally honest about where we are. So it's muy importante, which is very important. So counseling works. Nobody can tell you how long to grieve. I'm still grieving, and January the 28th will be 8 years. Nobody can tell you how to grieve. Don't let nobody tell you it should be over in 90 days. It took you, you was connected to your parents for however old were when they passed. So you're not going to get over 40, 50 years in 90 days. The devil is already damned. So don't let anybody tell you how to grieve and how you should grieve. Grieve properly, meaning get it out, cry. It hits me at times. The other day I was on live, I had to just delete the video because I started talking about her, my mom, and I just got so emotional that I could not pull it together. So how do you deal with it? How am I dealing with it? Some days I'm good and some days I'm not. The good thing is I don't live in regret. I did everything I thought a child or son's supposed to do while she was alive. You know, I didn't need to apologize. Listen, so I heard people say, "Oh, I apologize to Mama," and when she after she died, how? She wasn't here to hear it. You did that to help you get through your stuff and how you mistreated them. It's never good to mistreat a parent. It doesn't matter how bad they are. Treat them with respect because they are a human being. Now, granted, they couldn't raise you. God only trusted them to birth you, but He didn't trust them to raise you. So somebody else came along and raised you and grew you up. So be grateful that they had you. You know how many times I've talked to my mother and called her up out of the blue, living in Atlanta. I would call her. I say, "Hey, mama, I just want to tell you thank you." And she said, "Boy, thank you for what?" And I would say, "Thank you for not aborting me because you could have." I said, "I know it sounds simple, but I think about those things. She could have aborted me. She could have taken something and flushed me right through, or took a hanger. Back in those days, they would take a hanger. And so I found myself being grateful while she was alive. So I won't have any. Anyways, I see. I done jump back to something else because I was telling you about this lady who was 90 some years old in this rehab with my mom. I think she was in the nursing home part. And I remember her saying, she was sitting there while I was talking to my mother, and I was rubbing my mother's hand, talking to her, telling her how much I love her. And this poor lady sitting at that table too, in the wheelchair, and she just cried. She said, "I don't know who you are, young man." She said, "Is that your mother?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I don't mean to interrupt you all, but in your conversation," she said, "I couldn't help but hear what you were saying to her, and the care for her and the appreciation that you have for her." She said, "I wish I had that." She said, "Keep doing what you're doing And at the time, we were going through something in our family. She said, and I don't care how other people don't like how you're here for her. She said, keep doing it because when she's gone, you could save a lot of water. She said, my tears, because you won't live in regret. She said, I wish I had someone to care for me like you're caring for your mother and to talk to me like you're talking to your mother. She said, I'm 90 some years old. She said, I could literally go home, but I don't have anybody that would be there with me. She said, I'm ready to wash my own clothes. She said, they won't release me because there's no one would volunteer to be home with me. My children won't come see about me, so they have to keep me here. She said, uh, children don't understand because she saw me touching my mother and rubbing her hands, talking to her. She said, children don't understand that when they touch us, it give us the will to live and it causes us to live longer. That was enough for me. I mean, nobody had to tell me twice. I was going to give her that anyways. And so when I was sitting there and I was thinking, and she told me, she was saying how, she said, I just can't walk up those stairs. She said, I want to wash uh, my own clothes. Yes, yes, niece. Um, I said, she said, keep doing what you're doing for your mother. She said, I really wish I hadn't. I just saw the tears streaming down her face because she had no one there to talk to her like I was talking to my mother. She saw me rubbing my mother's hand. That's why she said, children don't understand that when they touch us, it give us the will to live. We want to live longer. So losing someone so special, and I remember the same lady said to me, "This is how I know this never ends." Yeah, yeah. Therapy helps us get through daily causes of life and helps us uh, manage. It'll never be the same. But I remember this same lady saying to me, she said, "Oh, if I could just have my mother to rub my head right now to make me feel better." She was 90 some years old, still desiring and craving for the touch of her mother in her 90s. Because there's something about when mama would touch you and tell you it's going to be all right. It changes how you feel, it changes everything, right? This lady was in her 90s, still wanting. She said, if I could just get my mother to touch me right now, she said, if I could feel the touch of my mother, I'll feel so much better. So all I'm saying is do what you need to do while they are alive, because when they're gone, your world shifts and it changes. That's only if you have a good connection with them. Everybody don't have that connection. I smile some days, and some days I'm sad. That's the that's the grief of it all. I don't cry every day. I went through that phase of crying and boohoo crying, couldn't make it, couldn't take it. And so I'm still processing. If some of you on here, how do you process your grief? I did the counseling and still have counseling. Um, and I go back on the memories. I've had nothing but good memories with my mother. The only bad thing I remember is seeing her dying, like seeing her dwindling. That was the only thing that but I had to stay strong or keep a face like flint, so that she wouldn't see my concern. But I was just as concerned as so many others. But I knew she was dependent on my strength and my faith to get her through her process. But when she got tired, she got tired. And I remember her telling me she was ready to go home. We're sitting in the hospital in Gainesville. She said, I'm ready to go home. I looked at her. I said, Mama, I said, we're going to get you home. She said, no, I'm not talking about that home. And I turned around and looked at her like, what? What did you say? And she looked at me. She wanted to see my expression. She said, no, I'm just kidding. She wanted to see if I was ready. She knew I wasn't ready. She just knew. She wanted to see my uh you know. Oh, I'm looking at that's come from hold on. I'm looking at yes, yes. I saw something. I can't oh come on. They take what goes with their argument and throw out what doesn't. Yes, people are they do what they do, but I want to I'm here to help somebody if you need help. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about how you process your parents and how long it's been and or someone whoever raised you, how long it's been and how you process it. If you want to come on this live, let me know and I could bring you on. Hey, Annie West Brown, what's happening? We're talking about transition and the death of our parents and how we're going through it and all of that. Lord, my little poor flowers are dying. I just put an aspirin in there in the water, and I got something that reminds me of my mother because she used to work in these things. Here we go. So, anyways, that's that on that. I think I'm going to stop because I need to just end it, and we'll come back and talk about it. We'll come back and talk about how we are being challenged and what are we doing to get through it. And even the after effects of how you dealing with your like how did I'm gonna throw this out here and I'm not gonna talk about it. How did the parents' death um, affect your relationships with your siblings or with those that are left? Some people was impacted by that. But I'm telling you, my conscience is so clear because I felt as if I did everything I possibly could. And let me say this one thing before I go. I remember saying it was a sacrifice for me because, yeah, I lived in Atlanta. Now, I wasn't the only one who lived away, but I lived in Atlanta. And every time she looked up and she was in the hospital, I was there because I felt like it just felt like that was my reasonable service. You're in the hospital. Oh, well, let's go see about you because I don't want you there, Laura. I remember she stayed there in the first time, her first experience in the hospital. She stayed there for 2 weeks. Guess where I was for 2 weeks? In the hospital. Yep, right there. I had my luggage, pulled my luggage in there, and I laid. It was a chair. It wasn't a couch in there. It was just a chair, and I would sit up in there, and I would put my legs, stretch them out on the other chair, and I would be sitting up in the chair. I would go to sleep like that, and she would wake up. She'd look. She said, "Boy, you still here?" I said, "Mom, I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. You here? I'm gonna be here." And then she would tell me how much she appreciates me. And she said, "Boy, I appreciate you." I said, "Mama, it's nothing to thank me for. This is my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. Your mama. And we're supposed to be here at every listen, every beck and call. Listen, you listen. It is what it is. And so that's why today I don't have any grief. I don't have any regrets, excuse me, because I felt like I did everything. So now those of you that you have your parents, or if it's whoever it is that raised you and you have a good connection, make sure you go see about them. Call them up, tell them how much you love them. There's times I would just call my mama up and say, "Mama, I'm just calling to say I love you and I thank you." And she'd be wondering, like, "Well, what's going on?" I said, "I'm just saying thank you, you know. Thank you for not aborting me and I appreciate you. And I just want to tell you that I love you." This wasn't where she was sick. And so, anyways, I love y'all. You can hit me up on my inbox. We can discuss some other things to talk about. If you're on my Facebook page, run over to my YouTube, Battles and Journeys, Battles, and Journeys, Journeys. Go hit that like and subscribe button. All right, I love y'all. Thank you for tuning in. Share the video. Share it. I'm not going to delete this one. Share it, please. All right. Thanks for chiming in. Come back and see me.